Chapter 14. Change. Change can happen. You are ready for change when you have unpacked your personal baggage and swiped through the contents, making sense of its meaning. Change begins by learning how to accept yourself for who you are, flaws, gifts, talents, and all. Once we have acknowledged all the aspects of who we are, we can learn to accept the self and all the unique positive and negative characteristics that make up the whole. We all have a story. We all have hurts and pains from the past. We all process the power of choice, not always making good decisions of ourselves, and we all have character flaws. A person in the change stage is learning to accept themselves with their strengths and weaknesses. This involves rethinking and reworking your self-concept, beginning with self-acceptance and self-esteem. Self-acceptance and self-esteem are not the same concepts. Self-esteem refers to the positive feelings we have about the parts of ourselves that we see as good. Self-acceptance, however, is much broader. We unconditionally approach self-acceptance, accepting ourselves globally, including both our strengths and weaknesses. We see ourselves as a work in progress through self-acceptance and accept that some parts are better developed than others. It allows us to recognize and acknowledge our hurts, habits, and hang-ups, as well as our strengths. The basis for the self-acceptance process comes from witnessing the ability of our primary caregivers to accept us, allowing us to have value, vulnerability, imperfection, dependence, and to be spontaneous without shame. In early childhood, we do not possess the ability to see ourselves separately from our parents. As we progress through the maturation process, we gain a sense of self. How a caregiver has molded and demonstrated self-acceptance is our first introduction to the process. If, through this process, there were conditions of earning worth, learning to accept oneself may be a lifelong challenge fully. Parents and primary caregivers provide us with a model of caring and parenting that later becomes our self-care and self-parenting. Although therapy is not about finding and placing blame, at times those who have abused us must be identified and confronted. If an individual has experienced abuse, neglect, bullying, and other harmful treatments, a confrontation may be warranted. However, it must be done constructively for closure and healing. One must carefully examine who and how to confront. A verbal or physical attack on someone who has hurt you will not bring closure. Confrontation must be planned out and timed accordingly. A therapist can help you identify if it is appropriate to confront the person and the likelihood of any resulting harm or further damage. A confrontation is not intended to get revenge. The patient should carefully work with a therapist to identify their goals for the confrontation. It is typically used as an intervention to help resolve and bring closure to past trauma. If confronting a person has the potential of re-traumatizing the individual, the therapist should discourage the event. Confrontations must be planned to help resolve unfinished issues and return the shame to the person it belongs to. One cannot initiate a confrontation hoping to hear specific words or see specific behaviors from the antagonist. Often, they will not give you what you want. One cannot anticipate an admission of wrongdoing or an apology. A confrontation is used to allow an individual who has been hurt to find their voice, share their secret, speak their truth, Acknowledge what has happened and give the shame back to the source so the patient can let go of the carried toxic shame. Some individuals will feel the need to forgive the person who wronged them to let go of the anger and shame they have carried. If forgiveness is possible, it is encouraged. However, it is important to remember that forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. Forgiveness does not require entering back into a relationship with the person who hurt you. Often, revitalizing such a relationship would be an unhealthy choice. Part of the confrontation is reestablishing boundaries with this person, and sometimes those boundaries include severing contact with them. Another step in the change process is deciding if you had any responsibility for the events that transpired. Please note that any physical, sexual, verbal, or neglect abuse is never the child's fault. They are never to blame for their own abuse. It is the adult's responsibility to protect them. At times, individuals will blame themselves for abuse, especially in cases of sexual abuse. In some cases, an individual may determine that they did have some responsibility for the event or even have reciprocated the hurt done to them. Sometimes, to gain control over feelings of loss and abandonment, individuals will repeat the pattern of abuse that they endured. Psychodynamic therapy has termed this as identification with the aggressor. Instead of facing the hurts and loss of control one might feel from abusive events, a person will identify with their aggressor and traumatize others to regain the feeling of power and control initially taken from them. These individuals need to own their behavior and the hurt that they have caused to others. Self-examination to determine the degree of your responsibility is an important part of the healing process. When making amends with a person is impossible, there are many other symbolic ways to resolve and forgive one's behavior. For instance, a therapist may ask the individual to write letters of responsibility and read them aloud during their session to help process the associated feelings. If you have the opportunity to be in group therapy, the therapist may ask you to pick out another group member to represent the other person while you read your letter or process the event. Whatever therapeutic method is chosen, the individual must find a path to self-forgiveness. The freedom that comes through this process can be the impetus for change. Mindfulness. Many of us go through life on autopilot. Every day, we exist as if we were robots, with no regard for the options available to us. We let our old patterns control what we do and think. We've been walking down the same well-worn route for so long that we've come to believe that this is what life is all about. We naively accept it and refuse to think that we can improve or change. We might become so engrossed in the old patterns that we fail to notice that we are merely surviving rather than living. As you pay attention to yourself and focus on your time, you may see patterns of negative ideas entering your inner world. Our irrational negative thinking has a direct impact on our ability to cope with pain and suffering. We reinforce our negative sentiments when we indulge in harmful thoughts, which erode our self-esteem. These ideas aren't new. They didn't happen because you ended your abusive relationship. They changed with time and over the course of your life. It's possible that you're just noticing them now since you've turned off your autopilot. We typically imagine that hundreds, if not thousands, of thoughts are running through our heads at the same time. In reality, we can only have one single notion in our head at any given time. The continual flood of thoughts, views, and beliefs bombarding our awareness are all competing for the same mental place in our awareness. Simply put, if you're thinking about your oncoming exciting adventure with buddies, that's the only thing on your mind. This is a thought that is occupying your lonely cognitive region if you are worried about how your abuser was a genuinely disgusting scoundrel. We might become confused because our thoughts move from one concept to the next at a breakneck speed. But only one idea can take center stage in our consciousness at any given time. We may use it by consciously shifting our single thought away from the detrimental, intrusive idea and towards something else. We may be accomplished by paying attention to our internal environment, including our thoughts, feelings, and body sensations, and making a deliberate decision about how to respond to them at any particular time. Mindfulness refers to the act of increasing our consciousness and paying attention to what is going on inside us. Mindfulness, by default, puts us in the present moment. It causes us to draw our attention back to what is going on in there and now, going on in the here and now. This simple change can transform you from the inside out. We are responsible for what goes on in our inner world, just as we are responsible for our happiness. You may not know what it feels like to be happy and whole inside your own skin at this time in your life. You may find yourself in a chronic state of fear, doing instead of being. When we are being, we are not running around taking care of chores or trying to solve the mysteries of the universe. We are one with ourselves, wholly, and at the same time, relaxed. When we are being, we just are. We are right here, right now, not in the past and not in the future. Being is not procrastination. Weird as this may sound, being is doing. You are allowing things to move and transform into a new state, a state where the ego is released, and you no longer have to use your energy to propel you forward or hold you back. A mental notion, a belief, or an expectation does not form the basis of your life. When you are being, you are going with the flow of the universe and not pushing your agenda forward, whatever it may be. This state of existence may feel uncomfortable. You may be accustomed to knowing what your next step will be or having your life planned out months in advance. It is reasonable not to know. When we are being, we have taken a step back from the working of the brain. We have opened ourselves up to the guidance that our soul provides. When we are being, we recognize that we are not in charge and we cannot control the outcome of any given situation. We are allowing the energy of the universe to travel through us uninhibited. This free flow of energy permits our lives to unravel on their own terms. From this place of objectivity, we can see that resistance is not the way to go. But at the same time, we may find that investing more time and energy, unless prompted, into our affairs is not right either. We discover that the best way of dealing with any situation is to let go of any presupposed notion of how it should be and allow it to unfold before us. Any decisions we have to make, in turn, will seem harmonious to us, regardless of how hard they may appear. Sometimes When we are in this place, we are led to do things that can, to the rational mind, seem like a complete mystery. We may find that we are guided to faraway places or are compelled to open the door to possibilities we may have never imagined before. At other times, we might unknowingly put ourselves into situations that on the surface may seem traumatic, painful, or at odds with ourselves. But as time passes, we will often look back at these moments and recognize their perfection. Regardless of what it is, we work to accept what life hands us with open arms. This state of peace is what being instead of doing or reacting feels like. There is a sense of inner calmness that words cannot adequately describe. People who feel emotionally safe tend to do better when trying to find this place within themselves. They are not battling with intrusive thoughts or raging emotions. Mindfulness can be used to help you feel this way regularly. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Mindfulness practice. If the peace and serenity of beingness is the goal, where are you now? We all have moments when life events disturb our inner world. Depending on what it is, we may be able to quickly recover our composure and return to our normal, healthy, and happy state. At other times, situations can set something off within which we may find challenging, if not impossible, to shake off. If you think about it, when you are caught up in a cycle of worry or rumination, you are boggled down, living in an inner world filled with pain, shame, self-criticism, or judgment. You are not happy. You are hurting. When you feel anxious, upset, hurt, or frustrated, there is a disruption in the force. One of your inner wounds, a previous trauma, or a negative core belief may have become activated. There may be a conflict with your authentic self wants and the precepts stored in your unconscious mind. You may still try to fit into the square box society, or your early programming has been erected. You may also indicate that you are in an abusive or toxic situation, especially if you constantly find yourself being negatively affected at the hand or the mouth of another. Any of these things can cause a disturbance within you. You may find yourself, when this occurs, reactively responding to the situation using a primitive defense mechanism, or caught up in the cycle of negative thoughts. We cannot use these moments to become our own private detective and solve the mystery of what is happening. Identifying what set you off can be challenging to determine. You can, nevertheless, ready the stage for profound healing by getting to know what elicits your negative responses. These insights might help you learn how to react to scenarios that once distressed you with more mature coping mechanisms. When you begin the practice of mindfulness, you will quickly discover that you are not your thoughts. You are not your fears and not your insecurities. You will start to notice that it is just energy and emotion that stimulated you. We never respond to something emotionally unless there is a conscious or unconscious thought tied to it. From this position, you can begin to observe your thoughts and embark on connecting the dots between them in your emotional responses. It is okay to be with your thoughts and experience your emotional state. You can do it without reacting to them or judging them. It is easier than it may initially sound. We reinforce our unwanted or intrusive thoughts the more we think about them. They can become trapped in one empty mental slot and arouse similar negative thoughts and emotions. It can be like a ball in a pinball machine. Our negative thinking can begin bouncing off the bumpers of our other false beliefs and inner wounds until our insides are shouting. You can start the process of calming down what is flared up and hopefully letting go of the rest by being mindful of your thoughts, especially your intrusive ones. They can be easier to control and can even be prevented if you can catch them early instead of waiting until you are in the midst of a full-blown meltdown. Mindful meditation. One way of supporting our ability to be is through meditation. Some people suggest that self-improvement techniques such as meditation or mindfulness are hard or even exhausting. The underlying stress and a pattern of negative thoughts are even more taxing on your body and soul. Numerous meditation rehearsals use mindfulness as their fundamental foundations. When we consider meditation in the West, we imagine an Indian spiritualist wearing a beautiful robe, sitting on a lotus position on the highest point of a mountain. We might take long to encounter the ecstatic states detailed by these blessed men. However, we may think that it is specifically difficult to accomplish. This impression of meditation makes many shy in any event. It makes them not even start or give up easily on this. The main objective of meditation, like mindfulness, is to center our focus and our thoughts on a single agenda. When we immerse ourselves in one task or one thought pattern, we end up losing track of everything else around us. Controlling what the mind focuses on allows any intrusive thoughts that may be vying for our attention to gently slip away. This practice helps to calm the soul and supports our body as it discharges harmful energy and emotions. What many of us don't understand is that two unique kinds of mindful meditation can be utilized. The main sort of meditation is called passive meditation. This unwinding and relaxing method is the thing that we frequently imagine when we attempt to meditate. Passive meditation uses techniques like rehashing a mantra or insistence, zeroing in on our breath, or clearing our mind of thought. It isn't the breath, the mantra, or even the demonstration of keeping the brain clear that supports health, healing. At the point when we center our brains around something, anything, it fills our unfeeling opening. It has the additional advantage of disconnecting us from the occasionally wild elements and dynamics going on inside. We find ourselves in a tangled up web of ever-changing thoughts. That is why they call mindfulness and meditation a practice. It can take us a while to retrain our brains and begin to form new neural pathways that support mental calmness. The second kind of meditation is active meditation. You have presumably already experienced active meditation in your life and didn't have any acquaintance with it. Think when you were wound up, agitated, diverted, or feeling ungrounded. Perhaps in the middle of your traumatic experience with past abuse, you went to the fitness center and had an intense exercise. Your session closes, and as you leave the fitness center, you find that you feel quiet, clear, and strikingly stimulated. Indeed, exercising can be a type of active meditation. The same is valid for jogging, running, raking leaves, cleaning a bath, or playing out a custom. What matters is the intensity you would employ as you pursue any of these activities. Your mind focuses on one thing and one thing only. You can practice mindful meditation anytime, anywhere. You can do it while you're brushing your teeth, or washing the dishes, going for a walk, or reading a book. It is about keeping your attention on what is going on at that particular moment. Gently bring your mind back to the original focal point if you find it wandering. Be kind to yourself as you begin doing this. With a little time and practice, you will see immense changes occurring right before your eyes.